Пакистану Ахмед Курейши. Очень влиятельный в Пакистане. До недавнего времени он был известным ведущим популярного ток-шоу. А также в нашей панели присутствует обладатель различных премий, финансовый телевизионный журналист, работавший на BBC и CBS Канада, член России. И, наконец, представитель страны, которая оказала гостеприимство всем остальным Media Forum. Один Маков, который носился из России, когда были астрономы в некоторое время тому назад. Теперь вы блогер. Ваш добровольный переход из традиционных электронных СМИ в блогеры продиктован не удовольствием вашим от вашего прежнего образа работы, либо это тяга к новому, и вы чувствуете себя более адекватно и более свободно. Объясните нам это.
But frankly, I found that I was able to influence policymakers in my country through blogging, political blogging.
Это ваша политика точно так же?
Well, politicians in my country, 90% of them don't even use newspapers, according to one of the surveys. We have a political system that is, I believe, very backward. But if you just allow me, I just would like to, I guard my freedom very jealously. But I believe we should not create another sacred cow here where we live with capitalism when no one could question bankers on certain issues. See, I believe a country like Kazakhstan, for example, has the right to have regulation on blogging. Why should a country that stands on a certain stage in its political evolution, a certain stage that suits that country, why should it jump that circle or that cycle online? And if you suppose that any country, Kazakhstan for example, reaches a state where it liberalizes the newspapers, then whatever applies on what you write in the newspaper should apply on what you write online. And I'm talking basically about political blogging, of course, we're not talking about other things. So, I don't think that we should enforce the standards that Mr. Darcy has just talked about that apply to Israel, for example, on Kazakhstan, because when you do this, when you try to paste in something that is unnatural to the local conditions of a different place, you end up creating a lot of anarchy and mess. And that's what happened in my country, unfortunately, because of the constant prodding by the governments of the United States and Britain in particular. And that's exactly what happened in Russia during the 1990s. And thankfully, President Putin, when he came to power in 2000, was arrested. That decline, that mess. So whenever you try to force change, if a country is standing at a certain stage in its political evolution, let that country decide. Of course, regulation is not bad as long as it's not excessive or diffuse. In my country, the government is not very happy with the current government is not very happy with what I'm doing. But they have a rule now for online blogs, and it's very stringent. But they know, I'm very confident that they cannot take any action against me that will not be properly justified in a court of law. And more importantly, that will not be, or the government will not be able to convince the people of it. That this is the reason why we're stopping, for example, certain things. I am also in a traditional print newspaper. And I believe that if I am being responsible in what I'm writing, I'm liable to certain laws in what I write in my column, my newspaper column, there's nothing wrong if those same laws apply on what I write in political blogging, for example, political websites.
Спасибо. Позиции спикера
and organizations such as the OSCE and some countries that are powerful try to use this loophole, freedom of blogging, for example, or expression, and use it for political means. It has been used for political interference in other countries. That's wrong. I highly value my freedom in my own country to write whatever I want. But when I listen to you, for example, I get scared because I know I have a list of examples over the past 30 years, 40 years, where using beautiful language, such as the one that we just did, governments of powerful countries have interfered and tried to stir trouble in nations that are moving in a process of evolution in their politics. So my concern, I don't disagree with you on the fact that ultimately our aim is the same. We want to reach a stage where every citizen, every individual will have the right to practice their own self-censorship and run laws or regulations. But how do you reach there? I disagree with your approach. I don't think it's right that you, for example, come to Kazakhstan and say, no, if you're trying to regulate, the newspapers have certain laws, but online, the blogs have to be totally free. You will basically create, attract all dissent to that site, and try to speed up a process of change that maybe the country, I don't know the country very well, but maybe the country is not ready for it. Why not let the people and the government themselves decide when they have reached a stage where they can be quick with their deal?
Would you appreciate? I understand your very nothing new in put on very minds presented by the people for commercial purposes. Thinking.
Yeah, just in response to the last comment there. I mean, I agree with you. In theory, it's a great idea that you shouldn't be able to just go online and write absolute nonsense. And maybe that, in theory, traditional media and the internet should be subject to the same laws. But I mean, I don't know how much you know about this part of the world, but the whole reason that the internet and blogging has become so important, certainly in Russia, I think here and in other countries in the region, is exactly because the laws that are applied to other kinds of media are so restrictive and so selectively used. And so to say the people and the government should decide, I mean, I think we've got the luxury of sitting here and discussing this in a really interesting and open way, but I'm not sure that discussion extended in such an interesting and open way to bloggers and the government sitting around and having a chat about how much they should be allowed to say.
All I'm afraid of is that when you allow that kind of thing, suddenly, all of a sudden, outsiders, people who want to do governance, basically, that have other interests in the region, use those arenas that we're describing.
The arenas are there already. They can use them if they want to. It's a case of when somebody's prosecuted. If you look at the people who've been prosecuted, for example, in Russia under the extremism law, it's not foreign governments. There's nobody's. I mean, even if they were foreign governments using it, they'd still be able to do that, regardless of what laws they were. It's people saying, "I think the police are idiots."
No, that's excessive. That's excessive. That's for sure. For example, sexual expression, for example. I really believe that where you have different cultural values in different countries, but the government should allow, for example, sexual expression online in a much more lenient way than it would do, for example, in magazines or things like that country. Just as an example, to spice up the discussion. And so this is the trend for the future. That's how I think it. And there's nothing wrong with regulation. Let the government and the people, I firmly believe in that, let them decide what is best for the country. And let us always be careful, because we're seeing this in our country. There's always another country, that developing country, at the lead, that is English-speaking. Of course, that does not apply to Pakistan, because in my country, English is an official language of Pakistan. But in every country, there's an elite that is very, I would say, Americanized, or Anglicized, if that would be a word. And they're very much, very excited, they want to encourage the kind of freedoms that we see in America or in Britain. And that's good. I like it, frankly. I love the way America, Britain, the kind of freedoms that people have to enjoy over there. But I also understand that other countries, my country, other countries, have their own problems. Some somebody who's sitting in government has to think about building things, and if they allow chaos or mess in a certain area that inflict damage to other parts of the country, economy, politics, whatever, people have to think about this. That's what I conclude.